Good afternoon. I am Dhiman Basu representing the Expert Committee on School Education. Today we are going to discuss the bridge material that we have produced for students of class 9 and 10, and I am representing the physical science group working here in the Expert Committee. Regarding this bridge material, I have several things to say. What is the objective in making these bridge materials for the learners? Actually, through the past 1.5 years, the students have been deprived of the normal teaching learning process that goes on in a school, and this has severely compromised their progress. So, the government has made an effort to produce certain material that attempts to bridge the gap between the syllabus that they will face in class 9 and 10 and those that they were expected to cover in the earlier classes. We hope that bridge materials will bridge the gap as expected with the help of teachers. So, let us now discuss what is the organization of this bridge material and how should it be used. The first point is that this bridge material is for all students, and the teacher who is using these bridge materials can use it in conjunction with the normal textbooks, and all evaluations that are to be made within the 100 days time frame that is given by the Department of School Education can be based upon the bridge material that we have produced. Now, coming to the organization of the bridge material, I have several points to say. First is that there are several chapters, and in selecting these chapters we have kept in mind several important things. First is this, that we have several chapters that have already been used in class 6, 7 and class 8, and there are certain chapters that have been introduced for the first time in class 9. So, the treatment of the materials included in those chapters are somewhat different. For the chapters that belong to the first group, I mean those that have been introduced to different extents in classes 6 to 8, we have taken an approach where we have connected their previous experience with those that they are going to face in class 9, and there are other chapters where 1 or 2 chapters are introduced for the first time. One such chapter is the concept of mole. Mole was introduced in class 9, and therefore, whatever material that needs to be prepared for students belonging to this class needs to be foundational in nature, whereas those like solutions or acid base, those have been introduced earlier. So, in those cases treatment is a bit different, and there are chapters like those on light, electricity and force and pressure from physics, which also follows the same idea, that if such ideas have already been introduced in classes 6 to 8, then we need to bridge the gaps and through such chapters, and if some chapter appears for the first time, then we need to prepare some foundational material. Now, in this bridging material, there are several chapters from physics and chemistry, and we have covered the most important concepts that are required to be mastered in a particular class, and in doing so we have put emphasis on certain aspects. For example, we have included many graphs, tables, diagrams that reinforce the concepts that they have already learned. In a chapter, we have started with some important learning outcomes. These learning outcomes are expected to inform the learner about what he or she is going to learn from this chapter and what is the most important idea that is to be mastered at a particular level. And similarly, we have included points to remember or points to ponder on a later section of those chapters, where some important concepts regarding the material that has been discussed in the chapters have been included, and there are sample questions from which the students will have an idea about the nature of summative evaluation items, and the most important thing is this, that in making those materials we have put special emphasis upon the molecular description of matter in solid, liquid and gaseous phases. Such concepts occur in the behavior of gas, such concepts occur in solution, such concepts are necessary in factors controlling chemical reactions, and normally such aspects are not properly dealt with in a conventional textbooks. So, we have put special emphasis upon this and included lucid explanations at the molecular level. The next point is that we have discussed certain prevalent student misconceptions in a simple way. Now, regarding misconceptions, I have one thing to say, that misconceptions are very common in physics, chemistry and biology, and they often impede learning process, and therefore, as teachers we need to address such student misconceptions so that they can grasp the matter thoroughly and proceed further in science. So, we have included small sections on such misconceptions and described the actual phenomenon and actual explanation over there. As for example, I will give you one from class 9. In class 9, there is a chapter on heat, and one very common misconception regarding heat is that heat can be measured with a calorimeter. This is absolutely incorrect, because heat given off or absorbed by a body can be measured with the help of a calorimeter, but we cannot actually measure the thermal energy that is within a particular body. So, this is one, and there is another one. The notion of temperature applies on a statistical sense, and therefore, it is perfectly all right if one says that this sample of water is hot, but it is not at all acceptable if one says that the molecules in a sample of hot water are hot, because the notion of temperature notion of temperature should be used in a statistical sense, and we should not talk in terms of hot or cold molecules. Now, there is another one. Diffusion has been included in our syllabus for classes 9 and 10 in the context of solution and also in the context of gases. Diffusion is a phenomenon that should be described properly. I will give you one example. It is often said that if a bottle of perfume is opened in a large room, within a few seconds the fragrance reaches one's smell or organs. However, this is actually due to convection currents. In a large room, there are temperature differences, and this temperature inhomogeneity produces convection currents, and fragrance is actually carried away by such convection currents. One more thing, if we put a few cubes of sugar in a cup of tea and stir it with a spoon, it is often said that the sugar molecules are diffusing through the solution. However, in this context this is wrong, because in the context of diffusion one must remember that there should not be any bulk flow in the medium. So, this is important with respect to diffusion. In class 10, there we have addressed several misconceptions, like one regarding the concept of ozone hole. So many things are discussed over television programs and also in the newspapers, but people often take little care when they use the word hole. Actually, the ozone hole is not a hole in its literal sense, because it is a metaphor that scientists introduced. However, it is misinterpreted and creates a misconception that due to the development of a hole in the ozone layer, harmful UV rays are entering biosphere. No, actually the ozone molecules, they do not form any solid impervious shield. So, it is easy for young learners to think in terms of such a lid, but that does not represent reality. So, this point must be made very clear to the students from the very beginning that the ozone hole actually represents a metaphor. In teaching physical science and life science, we often use various metaphors and analogies. However, no analogy or metaphor is perfect, because they do not accurately represent the target concept that they attempt to bridge. Therefore, these limitations must always be kept in mind and the students need to be informed about those. There is one more important thing. Often students say that there is a layer of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere that traps the heat given off by earth. However, this is not true. There is no such layer of greenhouse gas in the atmosphere. We have discussed these things in our work, and I hope that they grasp the scientifically accepted picture and proceed in their further studies. So, it is important that the students learn these things early in their journey towards science. And one more thing about these bridging materials is that we have included several sample question papers that can be used for their evaluation at the end of 2 or 3 chapters, and these sample papers contain evaluation items that comprise of MCQ, short answer type question, true false statements and long answer type questions, and the long answer type questions often include numerical problems, because there is the opportunity to introduce such problems in the context of mole and also in the context of electricity. We hope that our students will derive benefit from these bridging materials and the teachers will help them acquire the correct concepts. Without them, I mean without the teachers, such an effort will lead nowhere, because they are the real friends of the students who always stand by them in their hard times. Thank you.